Good evening, and welcome to this edition of Voxipop Community Town Hall. I'm your host, Brooke GINTY. It is hard to believe that today marks the 75th day of Chester County's stay-at-home order. I'm sure none of us could have foreseen our current world. But the truth is that long before March 13th, we had leaders in our community preparing for an unheard of situation. And tonight, you will learn that this preparation, this joint task force of brilliant minds and big hearts, has kept our residents safe in their homes with food on their tables. Joining me this evening to discuss all of this is Phoenixville's Mayor, Peter Urschler, KARIN Williams, the Director of the Phoenixville Office of Emergency Management, and TAMELA LUCE, President and CEO of the Phoenixville Community Health Foundation. As always, please remember this is a live show, so we encourage and welcome your questions. We'll make every attempt to have them answered during the show. In order to get questions to us, you can put it in the live stream chat on Facebook, email us to info@voxipop.com, or simply write on Facebook with the hashtag VoxipopTownHall and share it to @VoxipopTV. And be sure to stick around toward the end for this week's Feel Good Phoenixville segment. This evening, I have the pleasure of speaking with Kristen McGee, who is the Executive Director of Ann's Heart Phoenixville. For those who don't know, Ann's Heart is an organization that is dedicated to providing space and human services to the Phoenixville community. Kristen and I will be discussing the organization's Hall Street Community Garden and their upcoming June gala event, Dinner and Vert. So we'll be right back to start the discussion with our guests after a brief word from our sponsors.
Hi, my name is Roseanne Clementiz from Arcadia at Limerick Point, opening later this fall. On behalf of all of us at Arcadia, we would like to say thank you to the frontline workers, healthcare, and government leaders who are working so hard to keep us safe during these unprecedented times. We are so proud to have the opportunity to sponsor this Voxipop Community Town Hall today.
All right, as you can see, I am joined by my lovely guests this evening. Welcome, Peter, KARIN, and TAMELA.
Hi, Brooke. Thanks for having us.
Peter, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Brooke. Thanks so much. Thanks for having us tonight, and it's wonderful to be here with, of course, TAMELA and KARIN.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And as I was telling at the beginning of the show, we do have brilliant minds and huge hearts who have led us through the pandemic, and 3 of them are sitting in front of us. Today, I want to kind of go over your experience of the pandemic, which I know for most of you began long before March 13th. I cannot believe, I did a count today, that it has been 75 days. Can you guys even believe it?
No.
It's impossible to think.
I couldn't believe the number. And, now we're kind of sitting on the edge of moving our county to the yellow phase. So let me start with Mayor Peter. Tell me a little bit, you and I had a conversation, I think in February, maybe, where you're like, Brooke, I'm having these conversations. We're hearing about Corona. And I think you and I couldn't even fathom. I think one of the things we talked about was school clothing. And, you and I, our eyes are this big looking at each other. And it happened. So tell me what you have done and the borough has done pre-March 13th when the stay-at-home order was issued. You're muted, my darling. Still can't hear you. You know what, Peter, I can't hear you, so try again. Nope, I can't hear you. Why don't we switch over to KARIN? And Peter's going to figure out his mute situation here. KARIN, hi, darling.
Hello.
Welcome to live TV.
Thank you.
Don't worry, I can hear you. I'm not saying anything. And Peter, feel free to talk if you feel like you're testing. But I know, Peter, you have been alongside Peter from day one and before day one. So first, for those of us who are not so familiar with Office of Emergency Management, can you kind of give us a brief overview of what the office is and what your general role is within the community?
Sure. So emergency management is a four-prong approach to, disasters, whether they be natural or man-made. There's preparedness, there's response, there's recovery, and there is mitigation. And so when it came to pandemic, of course, we have a plan. Everyone has a plan. But as the best laid plans usually are, this was a situation that was very different. And so we absolutely had to go off book with response to this. The one good thing about this is that we were able to, while we were in the response phase, we were able to start the recovery phase as well. So that was a new experience.
So everything is firing on all cylinders. And I can imagine finding the pandemic, like many municipal tasks, is pulling out that one book, like dusting it off, reading down to the chapter line and finding the page that's labeled pandemic and the 4 potential helpful words. So you're responding and addressing the current needs and then creating a recovery plan at the same time. So I asked Peter a question about pre-March 13th. What was your experience pre-March 13th?
So in January, it was the end of January, beginning of February, Peter and I really started talking at length about any potential effect that Corona could have on the Phoenixville community, with the idea that we needed to get ahead and prepare. The conversations, we discussed community partnerships, the necessity for community partnerships. And so the end of February, we began having conversations with Phoenixville Hospital, Tower Health, with the Phoenixville Area School District, Dr. Fegley, and it was myself and Peter, and we would meet in a room in the hospital, and really we just went over a variety of things, everything from plan for a potential surge in hospital patients in the event something this became a very serious issue, to Dr. Fegley discussing how they were going to educate students in the event that they had to cancel schools, which did end up happening. So that started, as I said, around February 23rd. And at that time, honestly, we had no idea that by March 16th, March 13th was basically our final day, that by March 16th, these kids would be out of school and this would be a very serious issue.
I know we spoke to Dr. Fegley and Blake Emanuel last week about the school's response, and I know one of the large focuses for our community has been making sure that there is food on the table. And Blake from the school district has been, and her team of volunteers and staff have been doing their most amazing work to get food out. And I also know from being involved in the community that we have a lot of nonprofits who have distinct communities and distinct needs. And I'm correct if I'm wrong, but your office had a large role in kind of helping coordinate that combined approach, right?
Yes. Emergency management, one of the key things that we learn in every training that we attend is the need to bring in your stakeholders, your community partners. And so with that in mind, I reached out to the nonprofits who were in our community and, just kind of, Peter and I worked together to pull everyone together into one team. And so we identified the critical nonprofits, and they were the organizations that were providing food, and that would be PAX and Alianzas. It was Kristen from Anne's Heart, the Code Blue shelter assisting homeless individuals in Phoenixville was up and running still at that time. The clinic, who providing medical services, this Phoenixville Area Senior Center, the school district, who, they were taking charge of education and also feeding the community, as well as the Chamber of Commerce. And I spoke to Jess very early on. It was probably the very beginning of March, and she and I had some conversations about how the role of the Chamber of Commerce was going to be to help lead the economic recovery of Phoenixville. And so with all of these partners together, we started having weekly Zoom meetings. And on these Zoom meetings, we get an update from all the nonprofits. And it's, how they're doing, the increase in the number of clients they're seeing, I apologize. I missed Orion Communities and Chris Keller, who is doing wonderful work with assisting people, who are struggling with rent and mortgage related issues right now. So we all came together, and each of us in our respective areas of expertise just kind of discussed, the increase in the need, how we were going to plan ahead for the future, and what really, I guess, the worst case scenario could be, and how we could best prepare for that.
Right.
Additionally, on these calls, one big part of this is to make sure that we are talking to everybody and getting their unmet needs. So anything that they need, for example, Nina at one point she needed rice. In organizations that needed cleaning supplies, they needed PPE. So we took care of that.
I think that's, I constantly feel like a broken record, but we have to be proud of the things that we've done. We have to be proud of the fact that all of your organizations, you each have distinct groups to serve, but you serve humanity first, right? So everybody comes together. Your weekly calls to find out the need and fill that need is, an amazing feat. So thank you for being part of that leadership. I'm going to switch over to Tamela for a quick second, because Tamela has also been supporting our nonprofits in a different kind of way. So let me introduce Tamela. Once I find her.
Yeah.
There she is. Hi, Tamela. Nice to have you with us.
Glad to be.
So again, for our community, if you could do a brief kind of intro of your foundation and what role you play within the community and for our nonprofits, that would be great.
So the foundation is a little more than 20 years old, and we were formed from one of the sales of the PHOENIXVILLE hospital. And we really exist to improve that, well, it says there on the screen, the health and quality of life of people in the greater Phoenixville region. So we are located in Phoenixville, and we serve a 19 township ring around Phoenixville. And we provide grants to nonprofits that are health and human services based primarily. And we also do some programming around helping organizations build capacity.
Okay, sorry about that. So basically, you support the nonprofits who help support the community. So you give out grants. I understand that right at the beginning of this pandemic, you were starting a grant process. And of course, that kind of had to stop. So how has the Phoenixville Community Health Foundation responded to meet the needs of the nonprofits during this pandemic?
Yeah, I think everybody had a epiphany either sometime in February or March. For me, it was March 11th. And I was having a call with one of our grantees who was mentioning this pandemic and how much they were going to have to shift their services. I had a call later that night with Peter, actually. And it really hit me at that point. We needed to do something. This was really an issue that we needed to address as a foundation. We happened to have a board meeting the next day. So March 12th was our board meeting. And we ended up, I talked with board leadership, we scrapped our agenda, and I went to my finance director and said, how much money do we have left to give out? And we presented to the board an idea of, let's start up a COVID response fund. It would be rapid response to support organizations in serving the community during the pandemic. And the board said, absolutely, let's do that. We did a few more things as well after that. So we had some existing grants that were out there. And for any organization that had a project support grant, meaning that our funds were supporting a finite project, we called them up and said, if you have any unspent funds and you would like to, please transition that money into general operating so that you can use it to pay for other things related to your organization. We had a couple of matching grants out there as well. And so we called those organizations. And we said, we release you from the matching grant obligation. Again, we'll send you the money and you can use it as you see fit to support your organization. And then within just, I think, over a weekend, really, my staff did an amazing job of, first of all, setting us up to work. Secondly, setting up this fund and getting this rapid response fund up for our existing grantees to be able to apply. And thus far, we've given out just under $100,000 to about 12 different organizations in the Phoenixville region.
That is no small number for a rapid response fund that turned around in a weekend. Um, I understand that the foundation has grants and has its applications and say, we'll give you this as long as you use it for this. So I think and applaud the board and under your leadership, of course, turning in at weekend and saying, listen, these nonprofits are going to need all available resources to help everybody through this pandemic. That's amazing. So tell me, what do you think, how do you think that the foundation, now that we've sort of, Karin talked about the recovery phase. I feel like we've got the recovery phase and now we're sort of turning that corner to help support our new normal, which could be 12 to 18 months out. And we have to look at our community and our large community of nonprofits that support our residents. How is your foundation and your board looking at supporting the nonprofits in the community as we go through these next phases?
We have a normal annual grant cycle, and literally just before this call, we actually opened up our application. So if any of our organizations are watching, they can go to our website and start working on that application. But we are actually shortening the application. We are getting rid of some requirements. We're still getting the information that we need to make the decisions regarding how to best invest our funds in these organizations, but we're shortening our review period. Our board has agreed to a special meeting over the summer so they can make decisions about these early, and we're intending to get grant checks out to grantees many, many weeks in advance of what we normally would. So that, again, these organizations can have some cash in the bank to be able to spend on their operations. So many of these organizations have had to postpone or just outright cancel their fundraising events. And so a lot of them are really struggling with their dollars in the bank account right now.
Right. And I know the role of the foundation is not just providing money, but you also provide strategies and structures for the nonprofits to raise their own money and invest their own money. So I imagine that aspect is going to most likely change and alter as how do you raise money and support your community in a pandemic. So are you writing a new book too?
Yeah, we didn't seem to have the pandemic playbook either, unfortunately. I haven't unearthed that yet.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of capacity building programs and workshops and series for our nonprofits. And we're asking them right now, what do you need to learn? What experts should we be bringing in to help you during this phase? Because even though we have these grants available, they're not going to really fill the full need and bring organizations back up to the point where they were. Even if we were to fully fund everybody, it just wouldn't be enough. Right. So how do we help them recover? It is things like fundraising. It is things like financial management and planning and scenario planning, and maybe having events differently in the future. And so everybody's thinking about what kind of event can they have. Can they move it online? Can they have a virtual event? There's been a lot of virtual auctions, for instance. I haven't heard how successful those have been, but it is going to be a real challenge for these organizations over the next couple of years at least to try to recover from this.
Right. Thank you for that explanation of an overview of the foundation and the steps you're taking. I think we have Peter back on, so let's.
I think I'm back here, Brooke.
He's behind the curtain though. I can't see him. There he is. Hi, Peter.
Back again. Sorry about that. Thank you. I'm sure with all of the new technology we're learning, Zoom and Skype, unfortunately, I think it got the better of me.
No problem. Listen, you're doing lots of things. I know you were on a call literally till like 3 minutes before this, and we weren't sweating it at all, Peter. It was fine.
I was literally on a call.
So let me kick back to the first question. Let's set the scene. You and I having that conversation going, oh my gosh, are we going to shut down the schools? Are we going to shut down? What happened before March 13th, and what steps have you been involved in to help the borough in this pandemic?
Absolutely. And I'm sure Karin, it sounded like Karin took over some of that, and it really is Karin. I have to give the biggest shout out in the world to Karin Williams, who is the director of our Office of Emergency Management. Karin has been in this role for over 10 years. And, we've had a number of situations where we have planned together, we've prepared. There is, and I've been laughing listening to Tamela's idea of like a pandemic playbook, listening to, Karin say, there's this book that you dust off, and it really is intriguing because you have these plans in place, you have everything there that you think through, but the reality of you actually implementing them is very different. And so it's interesting, Brooke, I look back at it. It was funny. I was talking to somebody earlier today on the phone, and they said exactly the same thing. We were at a dinner together, and at that dinner, it's like, what if? What if? And there were a lot of what ifs. And it was very intriguing because a lot of these what ifs we had never done before. So we'd never had to shut down our school district at this level before. We never, we've done snow days here and there, but never to this magnitude. We've never had to shut down restaurants for this extended period in time. And I think what's very different, and I want people to just take a second to think about this very differently with me. What's very different about this than a natural disaster is that it's very difficult for us to see. Karin and I have calls with our hospital. Karin it does a lot with the personal protective equipment and making sure that our first responders and our nonprofits have that equipment. But outside of those contacts with medical professionals and seeing statistics on television, it's very difficult to see. It's not a natural disaster. I can't see some community or some neighborhood here with a flood. I can't see houses destroyed. Literally, it's kind of like we're living normal lives, but there is still this significant disaster level activity going on. And that can be very challenging. And so, I mean, to think Karin and I really began in January, obviously we watch the news like everyone else. So in November, December last year, when stuff's starting to slowly come out, you kind of start scratching your head and think, oh, that's never going to happen here. But then really in January, and then a lot of the plans started taking place, and the heavier planning started towards late February, and then into March, when suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, all these what if scenarios, we're actually going to implement them.
I think that your point about this is a pandemic that we can't see is very, very real, right? If we see a flood, we see the damage. We know that building is fixed, that road needs to be cleaned. We see fires, we know how to do it. And this is hard. And I think it's hard for a couple levels. One, we can't see the pandemic. And honestly, I think it's hard to feel it until it affects your life personally. But then also, I would say there's definitely a fear part of it, right? I know that I personally have to shut down and shut off at times, and I can't go through a Facebook feed because seeing the posts about it and looking at the numbers is incredibly scary. So nature's reaction of not being near something that's scary,
Yep.
then not being able to see it, and then again having no playbook, like no playbook for this. And I know you guys have had everybody has had to write this playbook. So tell me what your first steps are March 13th. We've shut down. We've got, I know the school, you're communicating and coordinating with the school district, and you and Karin are the masked heroes on the street, literally masked heroes on the street. What are you doing, and what are the things that people at home might not understand that you were doing to support everybody?
Absolutely. One of the biggest challenges like this, Brooke, and I just want to revisit this whole concept that what we view as people, as humans, as a disaster or an emergency, is in some ways may have been easier to manage through a flood, something that we could see, something that we could rebuild. I mean, even the simplest piece, when you think of 9/11, or you think of a flood or a hurricane. I grew up in Florida, right? I've been shut down for hurricanes, many times throughout my life. But the first thing that you do is you run together. You come together and you hug each other. You just are together. And one of the biggest challenges in this is that in order for us to have kept everyone safe, we've had to stay apart. And as part of the planning and response to this, Karin and I talk a lot about this, and kind of as we're writing the playbook as we go along. Karin and I do a lot of drills for example, the Limerick power plant. And Karin runs a drill every, year, every 2 years, specifically to make sure that we are ready as a community if there were ever, this catastrophic emergency. And we sit at a table with 15 or 18 people who are all there. We can see each other, we can talk to each other, and we're responding in real time. Now, suddenly, for the first time, we've needed the support of 18 people, but we are actually doing it all remotely. It's really just Karin and I. I mean, we joke that Karin and I have been quarantined together, but basically it's been Karin and I. And the other, the challenge and the big advantage that we've had in this community and what people may not see is that the informal relationships, this being a small community, being a connected community, has really served us well. Because when we've needed to mobilize, you're calling your friend, you're texting your friend, basically. You're texting and calling Tamela, and you're saying, Tamela, what do we do? What are we going to do for nonprofits? Today, literally an hour before this call, I was on the telephone with Jessica Capistrand from the Chamber of Commerce. You have these relationships already established. You have those working relationships established, and it's been a lot easier and faster for us to respond to this crisis.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've said several times, and I hope everybody knows, is we've said in this together. Phoenixville is in this together. I'm not sure if everybody knows that it's not just a saying that is true, of course, to form, but it is actually a campaign that you and Karin worked on. So let me flip over to Karin a little bit, since I know this was a bit of her baby. So Karin, tell me a little bit about In This Together Phoenixville.
Sure. So, In This Together is exactly what it sounds like. We're all in this together. And then we branded that with the PXV. Initially, I wanted to, Peter and I talked through how we were going to have one location for, people who were in need of help, things like that. And of course, social media becomes, the go-to place. So initially that started as a hashtag In This Together PXV. We began using it, borough council people, the borough itself, when they were posting information, the Phoenixville School District. And then Peter had this brilliant idea. We should create this website. And that's exactly what we did. So the website, inthistogetherpxv.com, is basically a one-stop shop for information. There are 3 parts to it. One part is that it serves as an information hub for the community. The second part is, there is a place on the website where you can go. You can see right up at the top of the screen. If you need food, you click that link, and there's information on where you can get food. If you need help in any other capacity, maybe you need assistance with your rent or other bills that are coming due, and you need information. And then there's a place you can go on that website also if you want to help the community. And there's a few ways you could do that. Very early on, we were accepting a lot of donations to PPE. That was a critical thing that we needed for our community, not just for healthcare workers, but also for various nonprofits and volunteers. And then there's a button to donate. So this website is powered by the Phoenixville JCs, and the JCs have been an amazing partner in all of this. They are currently holding the fund, the In This Together PXV fund. And what we did is, reached out to the community, and we told them, this is what we want to do. The nonprofits are operating, doing what they do best. They are providing food to the community and, all the services that they normally provide. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to be a backup for that. So the goal was to create a food reserve, and the In This Together PXV fund that the JCs is managing for us is the funding source for that. So it's primarily made up of donations from the community. And, when we reached out to the community, we told them every little bit helps. There's no amount that's too small, and of course, no amount that's too large. So we had a really great outpouring from the Phoenixville community, and also from Tamela at the Health Foundation. We are eternally grateful. She and the foundation's board gave us a $4,000 grant so that we were able to purchase food for the community.
That's amazing. So the In This Together Phoenixville comes from a concept and idea, and obviously how we are within this community. turns into a website. And then that website is the one place, and it's on our screen, but in this together, PHV.com is where you can go. You've mentioned it is both a site for anybody in need to go and find resources. And then also anybody who wants to donate can go there and find donations. And then also money. You can donate money because we need money.
And
so I have seen the website. It is a beautiful website and it's easy to navigate. And it is and covers all of our nonprofits like we've been talking about in supporting them. You mentioned that TAMELA has been a big part of that in providing a grant for the community. Let me go back over to TAMELA and let me just figure out from your perspective, what are the next big challenges for nonprofits and how are you going to help them recover? What are the steps?
Oh gosh, there's no playbook for that, unfortunately, either. And so every organization is trying to figure this out. Just as businesses are trying to think about what does reopening mean for us, and mean for my business, nonprofits are doing the exact same thing. And so they're thinking about not just the fundraising piece and how to get resources in, which is a big deal, but a lot of them are seeing increased need. We're hearing that a lot more folks are out of work, so they don't have incomes. And they're going to be knocking on the door of a lot of these social service agencies. For some of those folks, they've never accessed services before. And so sometimes it takes a little more time to work with those individuals to help them understand the process and how to get assistance. So it's increased community need. It might be more time spent with people coming in, but you've also got a workforce to think about. And so a lot of folks who work at nonprofits are just as concerned as those who work at nonprofits about whether or not how can they come back? How can they come back safely? This was a fairly traumatic experience for folks, and so there's some trauma to be dealt with, and there are a lot of leaders who they're talking about having to spend time with staff in a kind of a different way and let them sort of process this.
Right.
The other challenge that some folks are thinking about is facilities. And how might you need to alter your facilities either on a permanent or a temporary basis to be able to accept clients in, if you can even do that at some point in the future. So there's a lot of considerations, just as many for businesses just as many for nonprofits as there are for businesses, if not more.
I think that's an interesting part. Peter talked a bit about this type of damage that we're seeing. So from a business owner perspective, right, you have this damage, you need to fix it, but the damage isn't a physical thing. This damage is your health, of course, and then it's emotional. And, we're all thinking about that next phase. And I know as a business owner myself, I'm thinking about my business and the parameters. And on top of not only being business owners, on top of being, the CEO of a foundation, we somehow managed to find ourselves needing to understand the medical part of this. Because part of supporting, your nonprofit communities on how to do that is providing the resources, which is finding the resources. And we've had Dr. Brooke on a couple times, and similar to where we are, we know a lot about COVID-19, but there is a whole lot we don't know about COVID-19. So everybody is writing the playbook side by side. And I think that most of this has to do with disseminating the information and quelling the fears, right? You would agree with me on that?
I would. And I think one of the challenges is that there's so much information out and it's changing frequently. And so, and in this day of social media too, there's so many sources out there. Which ones do you trust and which ones don't you trust? And it's been really challenging. We've gotten a lot of different guidance from the authorities over this period about masks, no masks, social distancing, all of that stuff. And it's been really hard to kind of keep up with all of that and making sure that we're sending out information that's accurate, that's current, and that is the most helpful.
Yeah, I mean, bless you on this path of figuring it out, because we're all just figuring out as we go along. I do want to remind our guests that we have everybody here in front of you to ask any question about. So if you'd like to, please comment below and ask your questions. You can also hashtag Voxipop Town Hall, and then you can shoot it at Voxipop TV to ask some questions. You are holding Peter Urschler sort of in the palm of your hand. So go ahead and ask him those questions. Same thing with Pamela and Tamela. So let's talk about next steps. Okay, so we are opening on yellow, which who really knows what that means other than that we're easing some of those restrictions. So Peter, how is the borough handling moving to yellow and disseminating information to our residents about what that looks like?
Absolutely. Brooke, that's a great question. And I will tell you that there are, there is a high level of confusion, of frustration from not only our residents, but certainly from business people, from us as community leaders, to try to wrap our heads around this whole experience. So we're still trying to fully understand what do each of the phases mean and how will they apply to Phoenixville. So I want to be really cautious to say I can't give you specific times. We know that June 5th is a date, and we know that on June 5th that we will move officially into the from red into the yellow phase. We know that that lessens some restrictions, and we are now working to understand when we lessen those restrictions, what does it mean for us here as a community? So, for example, one of the components of yellow is that restaurants will have the opportunity to do outdoor dining. We're working to understand what that means and what that looks like here in Phoenixville, and perhaps in some ways, in having the absence of specific guidelines that we're being given from the state, we're going to work with our leaders here locally and our county leaders to specifically have good guidelines for our businesses so that we can operate business in a safe way again. And that is what I would say we're really focused on in the yellow phase. Now, the yellow to green, that's going to be the next part of this hurdle. Just like there wasn't a playbook for closing down, there unfortunately is also not a playbook for reopening. But what we want to make sure is that when we do reopen, we are reopening in the safest way possible. I will tell you, I want to just kind of talk for a second about what one of the questions you had asked, because I don't, it's difficult, I think, for people on the surface to get just the level of depth and complexity of what we went through as a community. You receive an order, and that order came, on March 13th. But like if you look back at it, you are pulling together teams of people. And for example, Karen and I pulled together a team of people with the hospital, who we hadn't necessarily worked with, but it was a lot of hospital leadership, and we hadn't necessarily worked with them in the past. We pulled them together. You're together in person trying to have these very difficult conversations. And then suddenly you have to change that mechanism from being in person to now being completely remote. You are also creating guidelines on the fly as they're coming out. You're getting these large state mandates and you're trying to digest them and create and understand what they will mean for you locally. Every piece of technology and social media and communication that we had to pull together was like instantaneous. We would have a conversation about it. We start to develop in this together PXV. The whole point of the website, which was developed in less than 24 hours, was that you people needed a concise place to get information about Phoenixville. And like Karen said, when we outlined our dreams for it, it was a place that you got information and that you could use the same information that Karen and I were using to make decisions and that the Borough Council was using to make decisions. You had a place where you could get help. And then you had a place where you could give help and be helpful to this situation. You also think of the legalities of it. We had to have special borough council meetings in order to even take the disaster declaration that had been declared and extend it. And our borough council and our staff here at the borough have done an incredible job because they've kept up every service. They moved everything virtually. And you have to also consider the borough is not only responsible for the 17,500 people who live here. We are responsible for 100 plus employees. I'm personally responsible for 30 police officers whose safety and health have to be taken into consideration. And suddenly you are creating guidelines and concepts that you've never had to do before. And luckily we have people like Dr. Sissy John, who works over at the clinic. She's their medical director there. And you're literally learning the medical side of it, the science side of it, the political side of it, the the community impact and the economic impact side of it. And you're having to measure all of those things and create a holistic response that you know is going to be safe and is going to keep people in your community safe, and also make sure that they have the resources that they need. So, I mean, when you think of how awesome a task this is, and I think about what Tamela did with the Health Foundation, and that fund that she set up, she went, and had to look, do something in 24 hours that culturally, they hadn't done in 20 years. So, you had to have a mechanism to disperse funds. You had to have a faster way to get grant money in, and get grantees to submit their information. And you think, like, we're taking sometimes, 20 years of knowledge or corporate experience and culture, and you're changing it instantly. And as a community, we have done an awesome job at that, really responding and showing resilience. And it's really because of these relationships that we've had. And so as we talk about moving from red into yellow and yellow into green, I'm hopeful, because I know we have the right people at the table. We have people like Jessica Capistrant from the chamber, who is working on the Chester County Task Force to reopen. We've got people here in our community who are deeply embedded at every level. We have a weekly call with our state representatives, our state senator, our congresswoman reached out to me personally to talk about it. We have people at every level who are providing us information and making sure we have the resources that we need to move from level to level, phase to phase. And so I feel very confident that when we do move forward, we will move in the most informed way possible, in the safest way possible, and we will make sure to take all of these components into consideration.
Right. So let me do kind of a pulse of the nation here with Karin for a quick second. Where do we stand now? And Peter, feel free to chime in too, because and Tamela, I know we're all working with this on the same levels, but where are we with PPE needs? Where are we with food needs? Where are we with money needs? I'll start with Karin first, and then I want each of you to kind of tell me what your current state of the union is. So, Karin.
Thank you. First, I just want to quickly build on what Peter said, talking about these incredible organizations and the work that they've done. And I just also wanted to recognize the Phoenixville Area School District, Dr. Fegley, and his team of people. Talk about an incredible job. These are people who left school on Friday, the 13th. Monday was supposed to be an in-service day for the students, and they were supposed to resume school on Tuesday. So when they walked out of the building on Friday the 13th, that was it. They were done, and the school was closed. And I believe it was, a week, maybe a little under a week, because of their extensive and just awesome level of planning. The Phoenixville Area School District was able to transition all of these students to online learning almost seamlessly. And they've done an incredible job. The teachers have been absolutely wonderful. The kids who are graduating, they lost everything. They lost every experience that, a high schooler is supposed to have. And I commend Dr. Craig Parkinson and Mrs. Marin Bala from the school district, from the high school, on the tremendous work that they've done to recognize the senior class. So thank you all for everything that you've done.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to speak to everybody last week, and I know that you are also a mama bear of a graduating senior, so I'm not going to make you cry, but you can give a shout out of pride if you want to, She's like, I'm going to cry.
No, I don't want to cry.
But I we talked about that, and for those viewers who weren't able to follow the community town hall in the school district, I would implore you, it is on voxipop.com/town hall. There were a lot of questions asked. There were a lot of topics we spoke about, and more insight on the steps that everybody is having to take when we move into these next phases and write our own playbook. And please be reminded that students in the community are going to be fed through the summer, just as we've been feeding them every single day. Families as well, they're going to keep up the weekend bags. So please follow PASD on their website. You can also go through Facebook to kind of follow up on that and revisit that. That was an incredible show, much like the one we're having here. So Karin, thank you for the comment. I'm going to move over to Tamela. What is your state of the union? How are we right now with the resources within our nonprofit communities, and if people need to help or want to help, where can they go?
To reiterate a theme that's been through this whole entire town hall is cohesion and networked. The nonprofits in Phoenixville are really an amazingly tight-knit community. I don't know how much people know that, but they really, really are. And I just want to give a shout out to Peter and Karin, who, when I contacted them and said, hey, can we do a wider service provider call for all these nonprofits? They jumped on board immediately. And so every Wednesday afternoon, we're having these calls where we have 30, 40 participants on there from these nonprofits talking about their needs, but also talking about their concerns. And we've had some groups bring up individual challenges with consumers, and other nonprofits will say, oh, well, we can handle that. Give us a call after this and we'll figure it out. And so, it's just an amazing community to be in, and it's so resilient. That doesn't mean that they're not going to need a lot of support from the community in the months and couple years ahead, but I think that they are very well positioned to continue to serve the community. And if anybody wants to volunteer, definitely go to the inthistogetherpxv.com website. There's an opportunity there. You can contact your favorite nonprofits. I'm sure they'll be able to let you know if they are accepting volunteers, and if not, now, when, or what does that look like? So a lot of folks are wanting to volunteer right now, which is fantastic. And we just continue to encourage that, because we're going to really need to just circle the wagons a little bit more and pull in a little tighter, and just bring this community together even more.
All right, so the common theme looks like this wonderful website that got put together in 24 hours. In this together, Phoenixville is the place to go for everybody to get information. Peter, tell me, one of the questions I asked was about PPE. Are we good right now, Karin and Peter? We're good on PPE?
We are good because of Karin. So it's like, shout out to my friends over there that I don't get to physically
Just
see.
shout out
But
to them.
I'm like high-fiving the screen. Karin in the month. Okay, so first of all, shout out to this amazing community, because first of all, when we called for PPE on the In This Together PXP website, we had a number of residents actually turn out to do it. I know our number of groups, the Masketeers, there's the Phoenixville group, the 3D printing group that is actually 3D printing PPE. And then you've got Karin, who literally in the month of April, Karin single-handedly helped to secure, acquire, transport 25,000 pieces of PPE. And she has gotten us over the chasm of, I know, like, it couldn't be more amazing. She has gotten us over the chasm that I think when you look at like the international news and you look at the countrywide, the fear is this chasm of, here you are today, you have X amount of PPE, here you are tomorrow, you need PPE, and there's this chasm that you have to get through of supply chains, et cetera, et cetera. And so Karin was able to get us from what hospitals and responders had. She got us through the chasm, and we are now on the other end, where the supply chains now are catching up. The hospitals and other critical areas have their supply chains back up and running, and they're receiving direct access to that PPE. And so Karin made sure that we got through that. The other thing, Brooke, that it's a big challenge, and I'm not telling us this to be fearful of what we've had to do. I really want proud of what we've done. But the big challenge as we move forward is that this has exponentially become more and more challenging, because at each piece we have another challenge. We were one of the first school districts to offer remote learning. And again, big shout out to them for that. We only community to ensure seniors and students never had an interruption in meal service. And we are one of the few communities that ensures that every person in this community can walk up to one of our meal distribution points, and even any adult can walk up to those meal distribution points and receive a nutritious meal that is sustaining. And at our height, we have given out over 12,500 meals a week. There are some counties in Pennsylvania that do not give out that much food or those many meals in an entire month. And so what we have been able to do is the magnitude of what we've been able to do has been stupendous. And what I mean by our exponential challenges are, first was food. Let's make sure that we get the basic level covered. The next is going to be us concerned about people's rent, concerned about their utility bills, making sure that we can help the people who may need that help or may have that insecurity, people who've lost their jobs. I'm working on a daily basis with people who are having problems accessing state services and employment issues, and we're working with our state representatives to do that. And then of course there's the economic piece. And so as each piece has grown, we have to not only figure out how to best solve that challenge, but we have to keep it going and keep providing that while we add on another layer. And so the next big layer for us will be kind of the personal housing piece and the economic piece. The one thing I say is, we use this slogan, in this together PXV, because this community is truly cohesive and we are in this together. But we also acknowledge that in our community as individuals, our suffering doesn't necessarily fall. And so one of the things I want people out there to know more than anything is, if you are having a challenge, a struggle, no matter what it is, any insecurity of any kind, we have resources in this community and we are going to find a way to help you and your family. And we're safe. And so please know that we are always here to serve you and to serve one another. So please never have fear and never be afraid to ask for that help. I have needed help in my life. We have all needed help, and that help is there. This is a scary time for people because it's a lot of people also impacted.
Yeah, this is, we do have a lot of resources. So I do want to remind everybody, not only in this Together Phoenixville, but you have your borough council members. You can go to them individually and ask them questions. Please feel free to reach out to your representatives, your House representatives, your congresswomen. I know that they are very responsive to requests and are hosting plenty of town halls with a lot of information. So the information is out there, the help is out there, and it can be found. So let me move and transition into questions from our live audience. Martin asked a question saying, it's clear that Phoenixville has experienced a lot of success in regards to their planning and handling of the switch situation. How can Phoenixville share the success with their neighbors in case of a second wave or future emergency?
So I guess I'll start, and I'm going to turn it right over to Karin. But the big thing that we are also talking about right now, to be completely honest, is that we are discussing, what does a second wave look like? Can we take all the great learnings that we've had and apply them instantly? And we know that we can. The school district, for example, is going to be able to apply virtual learning within a 24-hour period if they had to. Certainly Karin and I have all of the information and the resources and the kind of the process that we followed when this happened. But if there is a resurgence, it is something that we know that we'll have to instantly react to. And we feel comfortable that with kind of this first round, we have got all the resources and process in place to do that. Karin is awesome with regional planning from an emergency management perspective, and she actually has been connecting us to people. And I want to turn it over to Karin because I don't want to steal her thunder on that, but she has really connected us to a number of other communities, and she herself serves on a variety of different groups with emergency managers throughout Chester and Montgomery counties.
Karin?
Yeah, so we have basically a regional emergency managers group, and it is about 20 of us in Chester and Montgomery counties. So we have been meeting. We haven't had any recent meetings, but very early on, we work very closely with some of those municipalities, especially our neighbors, Providence Township being one of them. Our neighbors here in Chester County, through emergency management, we have all been working together. Some municipalities are experiencing things that others are not. For example, Phoenixville and all of the food things that we've been pushing out into the community. And for example, our neighbor in West Pikeland Township, they are not experiencing the same things that we are. And so they have reached out to lend a hand and assist us. Additionally, last Saturday, Peter and I, we had a meeting on Saturday morning, Zoom meeting with our neighbors in Royersford, the emergency management, and Mayor Jennifer Royersford, the chief of police. And we just talked to them about, a food, preparing for potential food crisis in their municipality, and offered our assistance, anything that we can do to help, just because, we've already kind of worked through this process.
So we're creating our own playbook. we're tightening our own systems. We're lucky to be almost well ahead of a lot of people by the fact that we have these incredible relationships where it's, calling Anne's Heart is just, you just call your friend Kristen and ask her a question, and that's how it is. So
Brooke, I just want to add like a couple. I know, and sorry, it's like we kind of, you're jogging our memory on a lot of these tidbits, but like Anne's Heart, amazing example. We are the only people who have an Anne's Heart in Chester County. And for those who may not know what Anne's Heart is, that's our emergency. It's called a code blue shelter, meaning that at a certain point when the temperature gets below a certain amount, and it could be dangerous to life to people living outside, to the homeless, it is a no questions asked shelter where people can go, and it's a dormitory style shelter. Now, it's hard to think, but when we began this crisis, we were still in winter. But Anne's Heart literally was able to take its entire population of people, get them through the process of finding housing, and those individuals who wanted to be housed were housed. And they found them places before we ever had an outbreak or fear that people were going to be, their health was going to be in jeopardy because they were living in a dormitory style setting. So, I mean, that's some pretty awesome stuff that's, going on with just that nonprofit. Even though we, obviously our concentration, Karin and I, our concentration is on the borough of Phoenixville, TAMELA has a bit of a larger service area. I will tell you that a number of our nonprofits have larger service areas. And one of those good examples is our senior center. So our senior center actually services seniors in Spring City, in Montgomery County, throughout kind of a large area. And they have actually taken on the task of ensuring a number of affordable senior housing complexes are receiving the proper nutrition and food that they can get. And so they do over 500 meals just to people outside of Phoenixville to ensure that they're getting the proper nutrition that they need. And we're doing that all in conjunction with our county and our Office of Aging through the county. And they're using our senior centers model and our senior center really as a distribution point to get that food out to a number of seniors who may need it.
Right. So it's, we're creating the playbooks here for Phoenixville, supporting our community, but it is very love thy neighbor as well. So I know we're supporting the communities beyond our borders. Let me ask a question here. It's an anonymous question, but a lot of people in the community have grown restless under the quarantine. How has Phoenixville managed to keep the peace while enforcing quarantine restrictions?
I honestly believe, Brooke, that we have incredible people who live in this community. I know it's been a big challenge. I mean, I think we're all getting restless. It's funny when you do see somebody outside, even driving down the street, you're like, no, pay attention to the road. It's like they're seeing a person for the first time. And I certainly get that. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to see somebody the first time. But the people in our community are so understanding. They have really worked hard, and they understand that what their actions are also impact the other people around them. And so we've been fortunate in our community because we have a good group of people who understand that their actions are impacting people around them. And so they're trying hard to kind of keep up with the mask wearing, keep up with social distancing, even though it has become challenging. And at the same time, it wears on you. It wears on you emotionally. It wears on you mentally. But we are still, encouraging people, regardless of what phase we're in, until you hear specifically from us to stop it. Always keep up the social distancing and the mask wearing, and we will let you know when you can stop that. But regardless of the phase right now, we need to keep those two things going because we need to keep this community safe and keep them. And not only do we need to keep the community safe, we need to keep the community moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And part of what is going to keep this community moving forward is to keep the gas, the foot on the gas, which, like you said, and I know if Dr. Broker is here, he'd be supporting us in this, but wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart. Even if you're wearing a mask, stay 6 feet apart. Constantly wash your hands, because part of that is what is going to keep us healthy, keep our cases down, allow business owners to come back into the community and to reopen their services, in whatever format that's going to look like. I'm sure a lot of us have questions about our events for this summer. I know we have a question about whether or not the events that have been canceled will likely be rescheduled, and maybe how First Fridays are going to look. If we're going to have, I'm not going to have them, but Peter, any idea?
Not so positive news. Here's what I would say. A number of events, and Tamela, kind of alluded to this earlier, the events that have moved virtually. I have been so impressed by what people are doing virtually. It's absolutely incredible. I love it. I'm giving a sunset toasted dinner on Vert,
Mm-hmm.
virtually, so make sure if you can attend that event, do that. Um, so a number of the events have been canceled. Unfortunately, just due to the nature of those events, Phoenixville hosts over 52 events a year. That's just events that actually require Phoenixville-based services, so downtown closures, etc. A lot of those events, unfortunately, cannot be rescheduled. So we'll be seeing those events next year. They came this year in maybe a different form, but we'll see those maybe, we hope, next year. First Fridays, the Chamber of Commerce, Phoenixville First, the Phoenixville Business Association, Office of Emergency Management. You can never forget that Karin and the Office of Emergency Management play a large role in those things. They have actually moved them online and virtual. And so you actually can watch videos about the different businesses. You can listen to the musicians play online. But until we feel 100% confident that we can bring people back together safely and keep them healthy, you will not, unfortunately, see the large scale events that we're used to here in our borough. But they will be back, and it's just taking a different flavor right now. But
yeah, we're all going to have to get super creative how to keep ourselves entertained through this summer. Let me tell you, because we're so lucky we literally can just walk down to Bridge Street on any random given weekend and be like, oh look, it's Food Festival. Oh look, it's Veg Fest.
And luckily we have trails. We have beautiful trails.
We do have trails. I have a question from Teresa about whether or not the borough is supporting or knows of when the churches may be reopening. I don't know if that's a question we can answer.
So wow, these are all borough related questions, everyone.
These are.
Tamela,
Sorry guys. Sorry ladies.
They're on this side of my screen. So, Teresa, thank you so much for that question. Again, we're still trying to understand all of the different phases and understand what each component means and what it will mean practically working out those phases. We do know in the yellow phase that we are loosening some of the restrictions to now be, groups under 10. That still has a lot of interpretation that we're working through right now. I would encourage you to keep watching the borough website, the Office of Emergency Management Facebook page, the In This Together page, and we will put out guidance as soon as we have kind of cemented that out. I do know that once you get into the green phase, that there are larger events allowed, but I do believe that in the green phase, you'll start to see perhaps some of our houses of worship, church services, and things like that come back more online and in-person kinds of things, probably though with some restriction.
Yeah. All right. So I have a question for Karin here from Theo. He wants to know whether In This Together Phoenixville will continue to be a resource after we transition out of quarantine.
It will. Peter and I have talked about that, and that is something that will just remain. It's a great resource. It's a place where everybody can go. And we really want people to know that when we say in this together, we genuinely mean that we are all in this together. So for anybody who has gone and visited the website, you will see links to all of those nonprofits that are there, and providing services for, food, housing assistance, Anne's Heart, right down to, addiction counseling. We worked with the Pennsylvania Recovery Center to establish an addiction hotline, which was a wonderful thing for them to do, especially given this situation, people who are struggling a little extra with addiction. So when we say that we're all in this together, we are genuinely all in this together. So this website will remain because those needs that are being served by the organizations listed on that page are going to remain.
Yeah, I kind of was just thinking to myself, we're not hoarders in Phoenixville. You're not going to find us running down the street with toilet paper. No. Like, here, have my roll. It's fine. I don't need it is kind of how we are here in Phoenixville, but it's true. And I think, necessity has spawned a lot of new, brilliant ideas about how to better improve your businesses. I was commenting on our prep call for this that I had ordered dinner from Uncle B's, who is a strong supporter of our community. And when I first ordered online, it was literally, I was calling Brian on the phone being like, hey, Brian, it's good to talk to you. Can I have food? And now, there's a website. I received a text message when my food was put in. I received a text message when it was ready to pick up. I know I get text messages from Sedona and other incredible businesses within our community who continue to feed me, and I want all of our viewers to continue to support them because they are also supporting and feeding our community. So we're having to rethink how we run our businesses. We're streamlining and we are getting smarter. I know we had also spoken a bit about what the restaurants in our community have done, and I want, Peter or Karin or one of you to just tell the viewers what amazing things our restaurant community has done and why we should be ordering from them every chance that we get.
It's when you think of how quickly a lot of these things shut down and nobody knew what it looked like. I mean, Karin and I were like, oh, maybe it's a 2-week thing. And then 2 weeks, it's like, maybe it's a 4-week thing. 4-week thing, you're like, 75 days later.
75 days later, yeah, 75. Yeah. Nobody's counting, but it's been 75 days.
Yeah, no, nobody's counting. But Brooke, when I tell you, like, these restaurants, like, they instantly reached out to Karin, to myself, to offer up any food that they had available, any leftover food that was going to go bad or perish. We were able to, again, with Tamela's help, we were able to redistribute all of the food that would have gone bad from restaurants to organizations like PACS, to the senior center, to families in need, to the school district's food distribution program, to our general adult distribution program. We had restaurants offer up their refrigerator space, their freezer space. Anything and everything they could do, they continued to help us, even when they were looking at this very difficult time themselves. And so, you look at all these things that people post online, and it's like, you know what? There are no large restaurants out in the, they're not large restaurants, but large businesses. Walmart's not coming here to save Phoenixville, but my gosh, if every restaurant on this street thought about the people in our community even before they thought about themselves. So I would definitely say, please continue to reach out. You look at our pizza restaurants, and they're helping to give food to the to frontline workers and nurses and doctors in the hospital, to staff everywhere. So everybody played a role, and it was like instant. Nobody had questions. It was like, I don't even care what this is doing to me. I'm going to help in whatever way I could. And that to me is
I also know Great American Pub was doing soups, and they were having days full of just anybody can come off the streets, and they were feeding anybody. John Sakos was amazing and brilliant at that. I do have 2 quick questions, and then I want to get to Feel Good Phoenixville. We're running a little long, but it's so nice to chat with my friends, so I don't want to stop, but people are like, all right, it's time to wrap it up. 2 quick questions. Will there be any sort of restrictions placed on travel to areas that are not in the yellow phase? And a second one from Margaret, similar, will there be a curfew put into effect for the summer until we get to the green phase? Karin, do you know? Peter, do you know?
Peter, I'll let Peter answer that.
Peter,
oh, sorry.
Peter, do you know?
I've had a lot of phone calls about stuff like this today.
Yeah.
So the first question about travel restrictions, that would be something that we would look at from a kind of a state level onward, that they would really be the ones who would impose those levels of the restrictions. We have not heard of anything in any of the calls that we've been involved in. Certainly, I believe as we're coming out of this, the restrictions appear to be lessening more than increasing. And so we don't necessarily believe there would be some kind of travel restriction. I would say generally what there was some conversation, and this could have caused some confusion, is in the red phase, they would qualify travel as life-sustaining travel only. So basically only go to the grocery store, only go to the pharmacy. In the yellow phase, that has lessened a bit, and again, social distancing, wear your mask, but try to limit your travel. Don't go out and travel, to Delaware and Jersey and everywhere else. Kind of keep yourself safe, make sure you're social distancing and using your mask. As we move into the green phase, that should lessen even more, and it's like, continue to do your outdoor activities, things like that. The curfew piece, that would be something that if we did have to do a curfew, it would be something here locally. I wouldn't necessarily anticipate us doing that right now. Of course, I want to say all of this with the disclaimer that we are going to continue to watch the information. We're going to continue to watch what's happening with COVID-19, understanding the testing, and also understanding where we are as a country, in the world around vaccine. And And so any of these things may change very quickly, but at the same time, right now, today at 8:09 on 5/27, we don't have any anticipation of having any kind of curfew into the summer months. And so I would say for both those questions, we'll just have to keep monitoring it and keep up with the social distancing, keep up with the mask wearing and the washing of hands, and it'll help us keep moving forward.
Right. All right, guys, I'm going to give you one. I like to do the one last thing. So if I've not asked you a question that you felt was important, if we've not hit a topic, even if you just want to give a shout out and a thank you, Tamela, let me start with you. What is your one last thing for today's community town hall?
I would say for folks that really want to help nonprofits, certainly you can give money, you can volunteer. One other really important thing you can do that you can do right from your house is fill out your census form. We haven't talked about that yet, but government support of nonprofits is pretty substantial, and so it helps lawmakers to portion dollars out to these nonprofits. And so we want to make sure that every person in Phoenixville is counted. And so that's a really, really important, easy thing that you can do right now. If you haven't filled out your census, do it now. They've extended the deadline, and we just want to make sure that the government knows that who all is here, and that this is a great way to make your voice heard.
I know, I can almost feel Peter going, yes, census, yes, census.
Fill out your census.
Yes, get your census in. Karin, what is your one last thing that you want our viewers to know?
I would just like to thank all of the nonprofits with whom we've been partnering, and tell you and tell the community that they've been doing an incredible job. And I am very grateful for the partnerships that we've established. And I hope that some of this working together continues after this is over. I also want to say thank you to Peter. We've been working together for so long, and he's seen me through my crying, my, my angry phases, my, oh my God, what are we going to do phases. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate you.
Oh, thanks, Karin.
We appreciate you too. All right. All right, Peter, your one last thing for our viewers to take away from tonight's call.
I just thank you. Thank you to Karin, to Tamela, to all of you, to this community. This is an incredible place. I'm going to say one thing and then I'll finish with my final thought. But, I just want to remind everyone, if you need help, this community has amazing people, amazing services in it. We will help you. Just make sure you reach out, let us know, let one of our nonprofits know, and we will make sure that you and your family are well cared for through this or through any emergency or through any time in this community, and never be afraid to ask for help. The final piece, I'm saying thank you, and I'm looking at Karin, and Karin and I do laugh, and we spend a lot of time together because it is a lot of crying, laughing. We go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And she'll cry and I'll be laughing, and then I'll cry and she'll be laughing. So it's a lot. It's a mixture. I will tell you that, you look at this and it's funny, when we were preparing for this, you start to write out all of the actual steps that you took, and it's daunting. You think of what every organization had to do and how incredible it was that we were all rowing in the same direction. And yet it all boils down to one really simple thing for me. Many of you know that I lost both of my parents within the last 5 years, and I'm an only child. That they were the only immediate members of my family. My family, unfortunately, is spread throughout the world, and so all I have in this community is Phoenixville, and Phoenixville is my family. And the decisions that we make every single day are difficult, but I feel like I'm making the decisions that I would make for my own family, and I would fight for my family until the very last breath is in me, and I will fight for this community until there's nothing left. And so just thank you for fighting alongside me, and thank you for all that you do in this community.
See, we're both crying. We're all crying together. Peter, every family has its heart. You are the heart of this family. So you can thank us as much as you want to, but without you, we wouldn't have this incredible world that you are the face of and the heart of. So we will thank you right back.
It's an honor. It is an honor.
I know, this is lovely. Okay, I want to say thank you to our guests, but viewers, don't leave, because we have the Feel Good Phoenixville with some amazing news from Anne's heart. So I'm going to sign off to my guests. Thank you so much for being involved and helping us understand better the situation that Phoenixville has been in and our nonprofits are facing, and keeping us informed on a daily basis. We are Phoenixville proud and Phoenixville strong. We appreciate your time, your expertise, and your dedication. Thank you for being with us. So now it is time for Feel Good Phoenixville. Let's welcome to the show Kristen McGee. She's the Executive Director of Ann's Heart Phoenixville. Hi, Kristen. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Feel Good Phoenixville. Nice to have you.
Hi, Brooke. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me on.
It's very good to see you. So for our viewers, if you could just do me a quick favor and introduce yourself and tell our viewers more about Ann's Heart.
Sure. My name is Kristen McGee. I'm the Executive Director for Ann's Heart. We are a local Phoenixville-based nonprofit, and our mission really is to provide a welcome space for people, for human services, and just to connect through community. And we've been working really hard over the past several years to repurpose sites on the Sacred Heart campus between Church Street and Hall Street. One of our early projects was the Code Blue Overnight Emergency Warming Center, which we do every fall through the winter. And then we are now working on a huge recycle project called the Home of Education, Arts, Resources, and Technology, or the HEART, since it's the longest acronym ever. And it's a community center for the community, by the community.
That is great. That's an amazing idea to take what we have in our community and repurpose it to give back to the community. I know Code Blue has been doing wonderful things since you opened that. I know you have also been doing the bed races, which I've participated in and are so much fun. So tell me a little bit about the Heart building and what kind of the goal of the building would be, what repurpose you'll have for the community there.
Sure. So the building was originally the Sacred Heart Elementary School, and it's a beautiful building. It's 3 stories tall. We have a commercial kitchen on the first floor. The second floor is beautiful light-filled classrooms. And on the third floor, we've taken some of the classrooms and turned them into administrative space. So the vision is really to allow the community to build through education. So the second floor classrooms will be utilized by any group, individual, nonprofit that wants to hold classes, seminars, meetings, yoga classes, anything really that would help connect people in our community. It'll also be a hub for resources in our community as well. And currently we're working on renovating the first floor, the commercial kitchen, into a teaching kitchen. So we will have educative programming with some of our community nonprofits. And then also we'll have an event space for the community. We'll do some community meals, some pay what you can cafes, some guest chef showcases, and then also allow other nonprofits to use it as event space.
That's great. That is amazing. I'm excited for that because, you know, we lack no shortage of amazing chefs in this town who I can totally see using that kitchen, along with, of course, Mayor Peter. We're going to have to do like a in the kitchen, but in your kitchen with Mayor Peter. It's going to have to happen because I've already just called it out. So
yeah.
What's that?
With his special aprons.
Yes, he's going to have a special apron. It'll say Mayor on it. We know. I know that from talking to you earlier that there's going to be a community garden, which I think is just an amazing idea. So tell us about the community garden.
Sure. So, and kind of in line with that whole repurposing of space, we decided to take a green space that we have outside of the Heart building. It actually faces Hall Street, take down the really ugly chain link fence that was there and say, what can we do with this space? So we invited 20 of our neighbors to come out and help work with us, as well as Trellis for Tomorrow, which is a nonprofit that resides in the Heart. They're up on our third floor with us. And we developed this Hall Street community garden. We invited the neighbors to help design it and then also help build it and plant it. So it will actually be a productive garden bed. It will have about 1,500 pounds of produce that will be developed from it, grown out of it. And it'll be a beautiful space for the community. Those vegetables and fruit will be donated back into the Heart Kitchen for the community, to our neighbors. They can come and harvest what they've grown, and then also out to the larger community through PACS, the Senior Center, St. Peter's Pantry, all the different outlets in Phoenixville.
This is completely Feel Good Phoenixville. I mean, everybody working together to just have a space to join, have a space to give back, have a space to feed those in need. That is an amazing idea, and I'm so thrilled to see it come to fruition. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I know another big thing, because I saw your wonderful video on Facebook, which was hilarious. Tell me a little bit about Dinner and Vert.
Sure. So this is our event. From the bed races, you can tell we love crazy events and doing silly things. We like to do things a little bit differently. So last year we held our first annual Dinner en Verre. It's a little take on Dinner en Blanc that you see pop up around different cities. And it's a pop-up green gala. So what happens is we focus on community sustainability by holding up a surprise event. Guests know that they'll be attending. They know the date and the time. They know that they have to come dressed in some sort of green-inspired apparel, but they don't find out the location until a few hours before the event. That keeps it exciting. It's basically a dinner focused on anything green. So our event is pretty much zero footprint. Everything is responsibly sourced. It's all vegan food because it's all plant-based and responsibly sourced. It's all local chefs that are preparing this amazing vegan food. Everything is served on compostable plates, napkins, utensils, and we do the composting on site. So nothing gets left behind. Everything is repurposed or composted and goes into local garden beds after the fact. And it's delicious, it's wonderful, and it supports our Heart Kitchen. All the funds and proceeds from this year's event will actually go towards the renovation project we're doing towards this community kitchen. And while we can't all sit at the same green table as last year for one big event, we're actually going virtual this year. But that doesn't mean we're not going to have a great time. We have a Phoenixville-inspired scavenger hunt, and at the end of it, you get a take-home bucket, your compost bucket, with your vegan dinner to go, along with a bottle of champagne. And we have a virtual toast with Peter Urschler at sunset, which will be a lot of fun. It's always great to have on. And the twist this year is that the guests provide the surprise. We want you to wow us with your green attire, with your green space at home, your dinner and breakfast. And part of that will be some really awesome prizes from our local restaurants and establishments, some of the places that you would love to shop at once doors open up again.
Kristen, it sounds like you are busy. You must be so busy. You just rattled off 3 amazing things that you're undertaking right now. So congratulations, you're doing an amazing job.
Thank
Can you just tell our viewers how they can help Anne's Heart?
Sure, that would be wonderful. So if you'd like to support us, we love volunteers. If you'd like to go to our website, www.annsheart.org, you can visit us there, sign up to volunteer, and we're always taking donations, specifically now for the Heart, as we're hoping to get the Heart Kitchen up and running as quickly as possible. And if you'd like to support us by attending a really awesome event, we hope to see you at Dinner en Verre. It's June 20th. From 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's a great way to get out of the house a little bit and support community sustainability.
Fantastic. And I'm sure they can find you on Facebook, Instagram,
Yes.
online.
Yes, we're on Facebook and Instagram at Anne's Heart PXV.
Right. That is amazing. Thank you very much for being part of Feel Good Phoenixville. We are so happy that you're a part of our community, and we hope you have a great night.
Thank you so much, Brooke. It was a pleasure being on.
All right, guys, that is it for tonight's edition of Voxipop Community Town Hall. I will be back next week, Wednesday, live at 7 p.m. with another Voxipop Community Town Hall. I want to thank everybody again for joining us in this discussion. Thank our wonderful panelists, Mayor Urschler, KARIN Williams, and TAMELA LUCE for helping to connect and support our community. It's time for me to sign off. I want you all to be well and stay safe. And just remember, we are in this together. If you need help, all you've got to do is ask. Have a good night.